My name is Sierra Mickler, and I'll be managing this event for all of us. So today we're going to be talking about a powerful technique in Onshape called branching. This technique allows you to create a version for each design experiment so you can make the design changes without worrying about impacting the original. All right, I'll now hand things over to Bill so he can show us around Onshape a little bit.
Thanks, Sierra. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another webinar. We will be talking about a particular aspect of Onshape today. First of all, I just wanted to introduce it as a concept. We're not going to be going through the whole beginning to end thing. Like I said, we're going to focus on branching and what that can do for you. But first of all, just to kind of introduce Onshape is that it is a cloud solution. Everything I do today will be in the cloud. I don't have to download anything. All I need is a web browser. That web browser could be on a laptop, it could be on a tablet. I can use my phone. What we're going to focus on, though, in particular today has to do with branching. So it is data management, believe it or not. So if I select on data management, what we refer to in managing data here is the ability of talking about different versions. So next week is revisions, this week is versions, and we can branch out. So this is really a unique concept where we can stay in our main design, but I can branch off in a direction and generate some new ideas, some new beneficial points that I might want to bring up in that design. And if those are good, I can merge those in with the real design that I've originally started with. So that's what I'm going to kind of do and go through here today. The thing is that everybody, when they're innovating, when they're designing new products, they want to be fast, they want to be efficient. And this is a really good tool to help you do all of that. So let's go and take a look at Onshape. What I've done is I've called up several components right here. They've already been halfway completed, right? These are the components for our design. And basically this supports a shaft. A shaft goes through here. And one of the things that I've also done is I've created an assembly of these two components, and I've also created a drawing of these components. And this is actually going to play a part later on in really being of benefit to me as I start to iterate or come up with different ideas, I should say, maybe ideate. So let's start off. The first thing I want to do is take a look at how Onshape kind of organizes my information. Here's the history. So what we see, I guess we'll do a little introduction. Over here is the feature tree, right? The different things that I have created so far. Down below are the several bodies. So this is a multi-body modeler. So I have a base part, and then I have the side part, which supports the shaft. All the features I need to create geometry are along the top here. Also, everything that I've done so far has been preserved. So I can go back to any point in time and say, this is where I want to continue to go forward from. And so branching is similar to that, but it's an organized way of doing things. So here's our history. Basically, I started off, and right now, this is what we see. I'm going to come and make a new version here. And we'll call this, at this point, in our design process, I want to figure out how to put these two parts together, right? Do we glue them? Do we weld them? Do we nail them? How do they go together? So I'm just going to say, let's just call it like combine ideas. Different ideas that we have to combine these two parts together. So what this does is it takes a snapshot in time of this point, and at this juncture, I'm going to start generating some different branches, right? Different ideas that can branch off from these two components that we have here. And basically these ideas revolve around combining these two parts together. So I'm just going to say, let's create a branch, and we'll create branch 1. So we can see off the main history tree here, we now have a branch for branch 1. I'm going to go back here and say, let's create another branch, and we'll call it branch 2. So we're just going to let it name these branches off. Give their default name. So branch 3, I'm going to even do 4. So let's do 4 different branches. So now I have these branches here, branch 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I can grab each one of these and start trying different ideas on how I can combine these two parts. One of the unique things about Onshape is that I can share this concept and these ideas, and if I need help, other people, I can bring them in And that's really what I'm going to do now is I need some help, right? I'm not going to sit here and generate 4 ideas, different ways of doing things. So I'm going to go and say, let's create a comment. And I'm going to address this to one of the guys in our company, right? So I'm going to start to type in his name, and it's Nick. And I'm going to say, can you help with ideas? And I'm actually going to assign this to Nick. So there's also the concept of tasks. So I can assign this to Nick as a task. He gets an email saying Bill wants you to help him with these ideas. So I do this, and I'll say assign. It says now you're going to share this model with Nick. It's like, okay, great. So Nick gets an email, and he picks on the email and says, Bill has invited you to help him with this particular product. So he signs in, and here it says, this is what I sent him, right? Can you help with this? And you can see the design right here. So when he clicks on this, he goes right into the exact same design that I'm in, right? So we're both looking at the same model at the same time. And this is what sets, not only the cloud-based approach of Onshape, but the ability to do real-time collaboration. So in this particular case, I'm going to kind of drag my window a little bit smaller so we can see Nick on here as well. And you notice that he can see the chat box here. So he can reply and he can say, sure. And so I can see his reply right there, right? So we can chat back and forth, right? One of the things that I'm going to do here, though, is I want him to take a couple of these ideas. We'll say branch 3 and 4, and I'll take branch 1 and 2. So I'll just say work on B3 and B4. And so he gets, obviously the chat here. He doesn't have any capabilities at this point to work on that. He just has viewing capabilities. So I'm going to just go in and say under our sharing things here, I'm going to say, let's allow Nick to edit this as well. So that allows him to do what I do, right? Allows him to create features, edit features, and I can control exactly different aspects of his sharing or what I'm sharing with him. In this case, I want to give him edit capability. So you'll see his menus will change, and Nick will be able to start working on, since I've added those different branches here, if we take a look, we can see the branches listed. Nick, since he's looking at the same model, sees the exact same branches. So now he can start working on his design. So I'm going to move his over a little bit so it takes a little bit more center stage. And let's work on some ideas that Nick might come up with. So he's going to go down to branch number 3, and you can see it here. And maybe his first concept for branch number 3 is, what if we just take these guys and maybe weld them together? So he can just go in and say, let's put, a chamfer here. And then let's put another chamfer there. And if we turn on both the parts, we got a spot here for a weld. So that's his first idea. So he's going to come back here to branch number 3, and he's going to say, let's go and change the properties. Instead of calling it branch 3, I'm going to call it something more meaningful. This is my weld idea. So now branch 3 is weld. Now he's going to go and think up something else. What's another way that we can combine these two parts together? And so maybe you say, well, what if we just use some screws? So Nick can come in and say, let's start sketching down here. I'm just going to sketch a line. So there's a variety of different ways of putting screw holes in things. I'm going to do it this way. I'm just going to kind of specify a couple of points that I want the holes to go in. So I'm just going to dimension this guy to kind of control him. And we'll say maybe, a 1/4 inch. And we'll change this to maybe like a dash line. We don't have to, but we'll say that. Now, one of the things we can do is start placing some points. Wherever I place a point, then I can say I want to put a screw there. So I can say, let's put one right in the middle, right there. I'll put another one maybe over here. So now we have another point. one of the things I'll do is I'll kind of dimension where this point is, right? Because I want to maybe control that. And we'll say, let's make it just an inch over from the side. One of the things I can do at this point is we could say, let's go in and let's mirror about here, this point. So now I've got one on the other side. So now I can put 3 screw holes on our component back here. So we can just go into placing those screws here. We'll use a counter bore. We'll say a depth of 3/4, and then we can just pick the points where we want it. So I can say, let's put one here, let's put one there, and let's put one there. So now we've placed 3 screw holes in our part. Now, I mentioned before that we already had drawings created for this. So what Nick can do is go to a drawing. It's already pre-laid out for him, and he can select on it. He can take a look at this drawing. And one of the things that the drawing, now he's added some changes to these parts, right, from when they were originally created. So we can see that it needs some updating. This little yellow button just says update it to what this current revision looks like, that or current version that we can see right here. There's the screw hole. So Nick's come up with his ideas here. Maybe going back to this, we'll say, let's change this, and we'll call it, we're using screws, right? So Nick can now text me back, chat me back, and say, hey, I've created a couple of new ideas. So I'm going to move him back a little bit, and I'm going to do a little bit of work on my end here. So for me, one of the things I'm going to do is if I look at these 2 parts, and I'll work on branch number 1. Come over here and say, let's go in and say, let's sketch on this face right here. What I want to do is maybe kind of put a slot in here so the 2 parts kind of fit into one another. So I'm going to sketch like a little rectangle. And we'll take that and extrude it out. We really want it to go the other way, so we'll say flip it. And as far as distance goes, we can say up to, I'll just say the other side over here. So you can see that there, we really want to add it to this part here. So now we've got our slot, or our positive part on this part, and it's going to be a negative on the other. In order to do this, we just do a real simple Boolean, right? So we're going to do a subtract. I'm going to say subtract this guy, and the target is this one. So you can see by doing this, and I can also offset this, right, from this. But here we go. We've got that placed. I'm going to say keep the original part as well. So now I've got my 2 parts, and this is my first idea for here. So I can go into the properties and say we can see Nick's screws and welds over here. Mine, I'm just going to say change the properties on this, and we'll call this kind of our slot idea. I'm going to take the second branch that we have here, and again, we go back to the original geometry. And in this case, I'm going to say, well, I'm going to kind of go out of the box. I don't want these parts to be looking like this. They might manufacture them a different way, do something totally different. So I'm going to say, let's go in and maybe round off some edges. We'll pick up some edges in here. And my idea is to maybe make this a stamping. So rounding this off, we could say, and let's put some rounds down here too, just for the heck of it. So far, doesn't look much like a stamping. But what I can do is go in and say, let's just kind of shell these parts out. So now it does look like a stamping. Right? So maybe a whole another way of manufacturing this. I'm going to go back to here and change its properties and call it stamping, right? So now I have 4 different ideas all coming out. In fact, I could go, I don't know, let's just go make even another one. I'm gonna go back here. So I just had an inspirational moment here. I'm gonna make it a casting. So going back to the original parts, remember, this is originally created as 2 parts. I want them to be created as a single part. It could be then a casting, it could be injection molded part or something like that. So we're gonna take our casting design and I'm gonna make some changes to it. I'm gonna say when the first part was created here, let's say this guy, I'm gonna edit him and I want him to merge, let's see. Let's merge him to the first part, okay? And then this one, same thing. We'll say we want him to add to the base part, which is good. So now we have a single part, right? A cast part, injection molded part, whatever. So we have that idea. So going back again, you can look at, we have a casting, a stamping, a slot, screws, a lot of different ideas. Now comes the point where we want to do a design review. So let's move our window over here. Nick comes in. In fact, one of the nice things about Onshape is that we can come in and do kind of ad hoc design reviews really, really simply. So one of the things I could do is go in and access somebody else. Let's see if I can get my phone going. My phone's not helping me here. I'm gonna try to get my phone involved. Oh, here we go. And I'm going to share my screen with you here. And I can bring somebody else into our idea that we're working on here. So even though the guy isn't in the office, I do want his input. So he can get in, I can invite him into the process. The idea being is that we can ad hoc get together on different design reviews and review the different things that we have and kind of vote on which is the best approach. Again, this all lends itself to the idea of being able to do things quickly and in a non-traditional fashion. So in my particular, let's say the guy on the phone, right? He's looking at this and he actually likes the casting idea, this one that he sees here. But, he can always look at the other history of the other things and you could say, let's look at the stamping. And we'll say, open that up. And so he can go through the different ideas that were generated here, and then we can talk about them, which one is kind of the best one. Nick can go and look through his, he's over here, and he can set his to looking at, let's move the phone off to the right here a little bit. He can set his to whichever designs. Now since he created the idea with the screws, he's kind of leaning towards that. So we can see those there. We'll go back looking at, and you can see the drawing as well. So that's his idea. And since I came up with the slots idea, let's say, I'm gonna kind of be leaning towards that. I thought that was kind of a cool idea. And we're kind of more of a machine shop. So the whole idea of creating a casting, we'd have to send out for it. Doing welding, we're not really good at doing welding. So machining, we could just easily do something like this. But actually the screw idea is not bad either. So what I'm going to do is go to our main idea that we had. And I'm going to say, I want to incorporate the slot idea into it. So I can just right mouse button on the slot and say, merge that in. And we'll see it's now updated there. But I also liked the idea of using screws. So I'm going to also say, let's go over to the screw idea that Nick came up with, and I want to merge that in as well. So now I have the screws there. But I don't really want the screws to be going through the little slot area I have. I do like the idea of it. I need really the screws to kind of keep this from sliding in and out along that slot. So I'm just going to go back to the original holes that he created. And we can let's look at it this way. I'll say, let's edit those. And we can see that there's 3 holes here. I'm going to say, let's not do the last 2. Let's just put 1 in. We just need 1 to secure this. And the thing is, I still don't want it going through this area here. So I can go back and change that and maybe move it out. So that moves the hole out, and it actually puts it through this guy. So now it's holding it down in this area. The screw is also keeping this from sliding in and out. And we've got really a secure design. And of course, if I go to the drawing to take a look at that, we can see where it was last reviewed. This was Nick's idea, but I'll just say update it to the current design that we have, that we're going with. And we can see now we have the slot built in, we have the screw holding that in. And now it's a real simple process for me to just go and let's release this. But that's next week, is the release stuff. But the idea I wanted you to get across here is that we can iterate on a lot of different ideas really, really quickly. And the thing is, while I'm here looking at this history of different ideas, I can say, what does the casting look like? What does the stamping idea look like? What does the slot idea look like? This is where we would always have to do save as, right? Or backup or something like that. And we'd have all these different files all over the place. And a lot of times they're going to have the same name, right? These parts are going to have the same name. So if I want to call up 2 different versions, I got to close one out, erase RAM, then call up the new one. Here, all I do is click. And I can see any different variation that I want to see. And then finally, we ended up going with the main idea that we have here, which is a combination of 2. So the great thing with Onshape is that we can create a lot of different ideas, review them quickly and easily, bring people in to help us with this as needed. And the whole thing is that we can get this product moving and keep it moving and not have to wait to all be together at the same time. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Sierra, and it kind of brings our webinar for the day to an end.
Okay, thank you, Bill. That was a great demonstration. In my opinion, branching is one of the best functions that Onshape has, so I actually always enjoy watching these demos. So I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but if anyone thinks of something later on, feel free to visit us at onshape.eacpds.com, and we would be happy to help.